Hi friends and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, hello. My name's George Agambar and I'm a UK music producer. Today's video is about saturation. Now saturation is a word that has a lot of different definitions and a lot of different meanings to different people. It comes from the Latin word saturatus, which means to fill until full. And that's how I like to think about saturation in musical terms. It fills out the sound. Applying saturation to a track often makes it sound thicker and punchier. So if you want to fill out the sound in your mixes, make sure you stay tuned and hit the subscribe button and notification bell for new videos every Wednesday.
And things will never be the same when I hear your name since you kissed me in the rain.
So what actually is saturation? It's essentially a really subtle form of distortion created by analog devices. The imperfections of analog recording add harmonics and tiny bits of compression to our audio, which give us that round, warm, characterful sound. In Logic, unfortunately, there isn't a dedicated saturation plugin, but there are ways around this. We can add saturation to our mixes using plugins that emulate analog equipment. So today we're going to be having a look at some EQs, some compressors, some tape delay, and the Phat FX plugin. Let's begin by having a look at some of the EQs in Logic. As we already know, saturation is caused by analog equipment, and so we want to be looking at the Vintage Collection EQs. In this collection, there are 3 different EQs that each work in a slightly different way for slightly different purposes. But luckily for us, we apply saturation in the same way in each plugin. Each EQ is going to give us a slightly different saturated sound because they're modelled off different consoles, and so you need to decide what sound works best for your mix. So let's have a look at how to use it and how it sounds. We apply saturation using the output controls over here. These allow us to add the harmonic distortion. And this is where it gets really cool. This output section is essentially shared across the 3 EQs. I can be using the vintage tube EQ, but then choose to combine this EQ with the output section from the vintage console EQ, for example, or vice versa. You do this by selecting the output model. Silky is the vintage tube EQ output, punchy is the vintage graphic EQ output, and smooth is the vintage console EQ output. The drive dial allows us to choose the amount of saturation applied, so essentially how coloured our audio is. There is then a handy phase option. This is because analog EQs introduce phase shifts, which is normally a desirable sound. However, sometimes it can cause problems with transients. This is when we can simply switch to linear phase. This will preserve the phase of the original audio and so shouldn't cause any problems with transients, but it can be CPU heavy. So here's our track with and without saturation added via the vintage tube EQ. For this example, we're going to listen purely to the saturation, and so I haven't applied any EQ changes to the track using the plugin.
I won't wait for you to call. I won't let you break my phone. There's no more hope for us at all. I won't stay up waiting for you, 'cause you know how I adore you. Won't you love me too? I won't wait for you to call. I won't let you break my phone. There's no more hope for us at all. I won't stay up waiting for you, 'cause you know how I adore you. Won't you love me too?
You can hear that the saturation has really thickened and filled out the sound. There are 6 different compressors in Logic, which are all emulations of analog compressors. As with the EQs, we apply saturation in the exact same way. But because the compressors are all modelled off of different consoles, each one will give us a slightly different sound. So again, it's a case of deciding what works best for your mix. So let's have a look at how to apply saturation using the compressors. Whilst in the EQs, the saturation is called drive, in the compressors, it's called distortion. We have a choice between soft, hard and clip, which will all affect how distorted the output is. We can also use the makeup gain dial to drive the signal even harder and make the saturation more obvious. However, if we do this, then we need to make sure that we compensate by turning down the output gain so that we don't get a huge change in volume. I'm going to make sure that for this example, no compression is being applied to the audio. So I'm going to turn the ratio right down and the threshold right up. Now here's the track with and without the compressor's saturation.
I won't wait for you to call. I won't let you break my phone. There's no more hope for us at all. I won't stay up waiting for you, 'cause you know how I adore you. Won't you love me too? I won't wait for you to call. I won't let you break my phone. There's no more hope for us at all. I won't stay up waiting for you, 'cause you know how I adore you. Won't you love me too?
You can hear that as with the EQ, the saturation filled out the sound. Also, the same as the EQs, each different compressor will give a slightly different colour and sound. This is a brilliant trick that I'll admit I only learnt fairly recently, but I've quickly grown very fond of. This is using the tape delay plugin to create saturation. We just need to make sure that we carefully set the parameters so that we don't hear any of the delay effect and we only hear the saturation. The first thing to do is to make sure that we don't get a delay effect. So we want to turn the feedback to 0, the tempo sync off, and the delay time to 0. Next, we want to make sure that we only hear the saturated signal. So we need to slide the dry slider right down and the wet slider right up. And now we can begin to change the sound of the saturation produced by the plugin. We do this using the clip threshold, the tape head mode, and the flutter controls. The clip threshold dial allows us to control the amount of saturation introduced. The lower the value, the more saturation. This is because it's a threshold for when distortion is introduced. So if it's introduced when it detects a relatively low signal, more distortion will be added throughout your track. We have two choices of tape head mode, and these give different sounds of saturation, so it's up to you to decide which mode works best for your mix. The flutter emulates the subtle irregularities in speed that a tape machine would produce. It gives the audio an authentic analog sound. So let's have a listen to the track with and without the tape delay saturation.
I won't wait for you to call. I won't let you break my phone. There's no more hope for us at all. I won't stay up waiting for you, 'cause you know how I adore you. Won't you love me too? I won't wait for you to call. I won't let you break my phone. There's no more hope for us at all. I won't stay up waiting for you, 'cause you know how I adore you. Won't you love me too?
I find it amazing that this works so well. We get such a good saturated sound using this tape delay plugin. This is a special multi-effects plugin called Phat FX. I use this occasionally when I want a track to sound thicker and punchier. It does a really good job and usually sounds awesome on a kick drum. I really like this plugin because it gives us so much control and we can be so specific with the type of saturated tone we want to achieve. Now, when we begin, this plugin can seem very complicated as there are so many different controls. But for today, we're going to keep it really simple and have a look at just 2 of its effects modules. For this video, we are just going to have a look at the distortion and compression effect modules. We can always do another video that goes into more detail of this plugin if you would like. So, as you see, there are 3 distortion dials. We can use these to combine multiple distortion sounds or use it for one individual distorted sound. You can choose which type of distortion you want to assign each dial to using the pop-up menu below, and as you can see, there's quite a variety. We then simply turn the dial up to increase the distortion. Moving on to the compression module. We've got an amount dial that sets the amount of compression added to your audio, and a release dial that determines how quickly the compressor turns off. So again, we have a pop-up menu where we can choose the type of compressor, and each one will give us a different sound. The Phat models are known to be super responsive with transients and can be used to create a really punchy tone. They sound really nice on drums and vocals. The VCA models are quite slow with their response to transients and are better used on low-frequency instruments such as bass guitars. And the Opto models are extremely clean and transparent and so sound really good on vocals and guitars. So let's have a listen to a track with and without the Phat FX plugin applied.
I won't wait for you to call. I won't let you break my phone. There's no more hope for us at all. I won't stay up waiting for you, 'cause you know how I adore you. Won't you love me too? I won't wait for you to call. I won't let you break my phone. There's no more hope for us at all. I won't stay up waiting for you, 'cause you know how I adore you. Won't you love me too?
You can hear that the Phat FX makes a huge difference to the sound and really fills it out. It's a really great plugin to consider using. So that's the 4 basic ways of applying saturation. Saturation itself can be quite a tricky concept to grasp, but luckily for us, it's fairly easy to apply to our mixes. However, the more you use it and the more you listen for it, the better you'll become at hearing it and the easier it will be to understand. It's really great for filling out the sound of our mixes and can be used in a variety of ways, so it's really a technique that is worth considering using. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you found it useful and interesting. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below and if there are any other videos you'd like to see in the future. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell for new videos every Wednesday, and I will see you again soon.